Oh boy. Go back. Go back.
If we've learned anything about Nintendo, it's that their games have convoluted timelines. I'm looking at you, Legend of Zelda. This time, we're delving into the lore of Fire Emblem. So,
Okay.
there's no definitive Fire Emblem timeline, but just so you know, Fire Emblem's Yggdrasil, Arcanea, and Valentia are within the same world, even though it's hard to pin down exact dates. Before starting, know that there hasn't been an official Fire Emblem timeline released. And we also can't fit everything into this timeline, but we are hitting most of the big points. 3 of the games in this timeline have never received official English localization either, so some things might get a little wild.
Ah.
I apologize in advance for the pronunciation of some of the names. I swear, trying my best here. And if you appreciate me tackling this wacky timeline, hey, consider subscribing. Minus 4,000. Here be dragons. We're going to base all dates on the Arcanea
Okay.
calendar. At around the year minus 4,000, we see that Arcanea is inhabited by dragons. And no, they're not
Okay,
your
hold on,
typical
hold on.
dragon.
Even the Fire Emblem itself, I do not know what is the main plot of Fire Emblem, you know? Let alone the timeline and shit. So hopefully he's gonna explain what the fuck is Fire Emblem.
Minus 4,000, we see that Arcanea is inhabited by dragons. And no, they're not your typical
There
dragons.
is kinda no plot, really? Like there's no problem that the hero need to solve, or maybe find something missing and fix the world and shit. There's not that type of stuff. So what, like the character just go around and then meet people and ending kind of thing? I mean, yeah, that can be considered a plot as well. I mean, maybe the plot not really interesting. Is that what you're saying? That's why there's no plot. Yeah, that's like the simplest plot ever.
We see that Arcanea is inhabited by dragons. And no, they're not your typical dragons that, sleep on piles of gold and eat sheep. We're talking about a
Ah,
society.
there's no continuation plot. I mean, also he said in the beginning that there's no really like a timeline because it's hard to connect them because of the story and shit.
Calendar. At around the year minus 4,000, we see that Arcanea is inhabited by dragons. And no, they're not your typical dragons
Arcanea
that
is
sleep on piles of
the
gold
world,
and eat
right?
sheep. We're talking about a society of dragons that have some sort of social hierarchy. There are different types of
Oh,
dragons.
it's Skyrim.
but De facto leaders are the divine dragons. Among them is Naga, a legendary figure in Fire Emblem and the Dragon's League.
Naga.
For thousands of years, things seem to be
Naga
fine,
just mean
and
dragon
it's
in
quite
my
a long time
language.
to have normalcy. Minus 1,000, dragons be gone. 3,000 years later, still well before any Fire Emblem game, we see that things aren't going too well for the dragons. For some reason, be it a disease or potent magic, dragons fall ill to stuff like madness and infertility. That, my friends, is not something you want to mess around with. Trust me. And as a result, we see the first of the Manikeets.
Okay.
Manikeets kind of look like humans, minus their, pointed ear. They're basically dragons turned human, but with the aid of a dragon stone, they can temporarily turn back into a powerful dragon form. This seems to be the only way for the dragons to remain alive, or, at least stay sane. But still, some of these dragons didn't turn into Manikeets, and so went mad. That's why players usually end up killing a dragon of some sort at the end of these games in the timeline. Minus 500, Naga dies, Tiki lives. From here, the dragons have an all-out war. I'm, simplifying, of course. We don't really have time to get into the nitty-gritty of the Dragon War. Naga dies for some reason, and before that, she creates Falchion, a sword for humans to use against dragons like the ones she fought in the war. The frenzied ones. Around this time, she also had a daughter named Tiki. But at this point, she's just a baby, although in dragon years, she's probably a lot older than most humans could ever think of living to. Anyway, Naga fears that Tiki is so powerful that she could destroy everything if she went mad like the other dragons.
Jesus.
So she basically puts Tiki in a kind of dragon cryostasis. It'll be quite some time until we see Tiki again, but don't worry. She'll make her return eventually. Minus 423, the genealogy of the Holy War. Finally, we're talking about our first game. And the first game in the timeline is Genealogy of the Holy War. The fourth game in the series, and one that's only available in Japan. Hey Nintendo, you want to get on localizing that, please? Now this game is split into 2
3DS.
generations, and we begin with Sigurd's story. Sigurd is a royal of Granvale in the continent of Yggdrasil. And, as things usually go, this period in Fire Emblem's history starts with an invasion. Our young hero, Sigurd, takes up arms with his fellow soldiers. Granvale is fighting a war against Isaac, another kingdom in Yggdrasil. Hey, it's just what kingdoms do. They love to go to war with each other. Now, while these 2 kingdoms fight, the kingdom of Verdane decides to mix things up and attack the vulnerable Granvale, even though they were allies. As Verdane is invading Youngby, one of Granvale's territories, Sigurd swoops in with his forces to protect Youngby. Once he does, an all-out war ensues. And he isn't going to let Verdane get away with their betrayal. They even kidnapped Princess Edain. Sigurd gets promoted to a holy knight and, with newfound purpose, continues his war into Verdane. Sigurd and his group of soldiers, including Finn, Arden, and Quan, go forth. Along the way, Sigurd meets a white-haired woman named Deirdre, his future wife. Sounds like good news for Sigurd, but things are going to take a turn for the worse eventually. Minus 421. Selef is born. Sigurd and Deirdre have their blue-haired son, Selef.
How many years
minus
is that?
421.
From?
Sounds like good news for Sigurd, but things are going to take a turn for the worse eventually.
Holy War and... What is the year when the Holy War happened? So this is like just like a few years after? Like 20 maybe? After the... Okay. Fire Emblem is really a lot about fantasy political shit. Ah, okay. I mean, yeah. You need to include that as well. Because Kingdom has some problem, not just dragon and shit.
Minus 421. Selef is born.
Like
Sigurd
40,
and Deirdre
yeah.
have their blue-haired son, Selef. Around this time, other members of the army fall in love and have children, laying the groundwork for a second generation. Genealogy of the Holy War was the first game in the Fire Emblem series to introduce children of units. And believe me when I say that it's important that you raise them right. There is a right way and a wrong way to have children in this game. I can't believe I just said that, but yeah, here we go. Minus 419. War wages on. Over the next 2 years, Sigurd and the gang have kids, fight against armies, and get embroiled in rebellions and civil wars too. Oh, and Sigurd's wife is kidnapped and gets her mind wiped clean. In this time, Granvale even defeats Isaac. Still, bad things are on the way. At some point, members of Sigurd's army separate for war effort-related reasons. During one of their battles, Quan and Ethelyn, as well as the rest of their group, are ambushed and killed. Bad news for Sigurd, and definitely a sign of things to come. And no, this didn't occur in gameplay, so they're gonna die no matter what the player does. Sigurd and the surviving gang are on their way back to Granvale to meet with a duke named Arvis. To keep things short, Sigurd and his father Byron are wrongfully pinned as the murderers of an important prince of Granvale. And meanwhile, Arvis is being blackmailed by a nefarious dragon-worshipping Loptus cult, which knew he had an inferior bloodline and would challenge his legitimacy. So he labels Sigurd and Byron as traitors. When Sigurd returns, Arvis betrays him and sets Sigurd and the rest of his, well, your army aflame, killing them all. The children and Finn are the only ones to survive this massacre in Valhalla, and that's just the first half of the game. You know, we're not even done yet. Minus 404. Thracia 776. But before the second generation of Genealogy, Fire Emblem 5 takes place. Like Genealogy, Thracia 776 is a Japanese-only title. It stars Lord Leif, the son of Sigurd's old comrades, the late Quan and Ethelyn. Leif is the heir to Manster, a republic under enemy occupation. See, he spent most of his childhood on the run from the Arvis-controlled Granvale, who now controls that entire region. Leif successfully
There's so many games that not really came to US, huh?
Raydrake in the process.
I thought every
Eventually,
Fire
Leif
Emblem
becomes
is
the king of
available
Thracia,
in, you
although
know,
we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves.
every one of them has like a
See, he's grown up too, and Yugdrum
English
is still at war.
localization.
Minus 403, Generation 2. Selef now leads an army comprised of the kids of Sigurd's old crew, along with some new faces as well. His goal is to liberate his country from the cruel grasp of Arvis. At this point, Arvis and Deirdre have twins named Julius and Julia. Totally original naming, right? Well, Julius goes on to kill his mother, probably for the naming thing. Anyway, in the same year, Selef and Leif help each other out in their own wars, but Selef's main task is to liberate Granvale. His next objective is to put an end to the Loptus cult, which has been pulling the strings from the start. See, they worship Loptus, a dragon from the times of Naga and Tiki, and, you know, he's one of the bad ones. The power of this dragon flows through Julius, but with Julia's help, Selef and his army manage to end it all by slaying him. I guess you could say it's a happy ending. See, Selef is ruler of the now liberated country, and Leif becomes the ruler of Thracia. Hopefully, these two friends can assure that there's no more fighting. 602, Shadow Dragon. Hundreds
Okay.
of years pass, and now we're on a different
Jesus
continent,
Christ.
Arcanea. This is where Prince Marth of Altia lives.
Oh yeah, that's
You know,
the
who
guy.
we all know from
Yeah.
Super Smash Brothers. Prince Marth, young and still in training, sees his country invaded by Gra and flees at the request of his sister, Elise. With the help of Jagan and other Altian soldiers, Marth successfully flees and spends several years in the ally nation of Talus. 605, back to war. 2 or 3 years later, Marth has grown more experienced. The island of Talus eventually gets invaded by pirates. Yarr! And this marks the beginning of Marth's journey to retake his country of Altia. He is joined by Talus Princess Sheeta and recruits many more soldiers. By now, you know the drill. Marth commands an army and retakes castles and defeats enemies. They save Nina, the princess of Arcanea, and she grants Marth the Fire
I
Emblem,
like when
which,
they blink.
gameplay-wise, can open up chests with
It
powerful
looks
artifacts
so weird.
inside. In their battles, they fight Manicheets led by Medius, who is a dragon from thousands of years back. These Manicheets become quite a problem, but could be easily slain with Falchion, the weapon used to defeat Medius years ago. See, Marth's father,
Blinking with
Cornelius,
clay,
once
yeah.
wielded the Falchion, and now Marth has to retrieve it if he has any hopes of winning. Garneth is the one who has Falchion, and he is as ugly as he is evil. He was in cahoots with Medius and his Manicheets too, and he kidnapped Marth's sister. After Tiki wakes up, Garneth captures
Damn,
her and
Tiki's still
brainwashes
alive.
her to fight Marth. See, Marth spares her and spends some time with
I mean, yeah, they are
her.
dragon,
Falchion,
right?
her carer, takes her away sometime later. Eventually, Garneth is killed by one of Marth's mage allies with a special tome.
So they were like
Marth
a
retrieves both
immortal in a
Falchion
way?
and his kidnapped sister. A year later, in 605, Marth puts an end to Medius' literal madness and slays him, ending the war. You know, for a time, at least. 606. Shadows of Valentia. Roughly a year or so after Marth's victory in Arcanea, we see turmoil in yet another continent in the Fire Emblem universe. This time, we're in Valentia, which is separated from Arcanea by a body of water. In Valentia, there are two countries called Rigel and Zofia. Rigel is situated in the north, meanwhile Zofia is to the south. They were founded by the dragons Duma and Milla. King Lima of Zofia was betrayed by his advisor, Desai, who colluded with Rigel to stage a rebellion. And so, war erupted again. A pocket of resistance fighters called the Deliverance rose up to reclaim their usurped kingdom from Desai's treachery. So where do our two protagonists play into this? Alm and Celica are childhood friends that live in Ram Village. Celica was eventually taken to an island monastery devoted to Milla, while Alm remained a humble boy in the village. He was raised by Mycen, an old knight. Now grown up, Alm joins the Deliverance after they come to his village looking for new recruits. At the same time, Celica departs from the monastery, seeking Milla's aid for failing crops. Two protagonists go on two different journeys, but they're destined to reunite. Alm quickly becomes the leader of the resistance, like a true badass. Celica and her companions fight pirates and zombies on our way to Zofia's castle. Yes, there are zombies and other undead enemies, but don't cross your fingers about using your fallen teammates. They, unfortunately, stay dead. Alm and Celica eventually meet at Zofia's castle, but they're conflicted. She doesn't want Alm to take over Rigel and slay King Rudolph. Alm is like, nah, and wants to go anyway. Celica leaves him on bitter terms, but she's gonna go to Milla's temple either way. Along the way, Celica encounters the White Wing sisters named Paula, Catria, and Est, three Pegasus knights who fought with Marth in his war a year prior. Est gets kidnapped by some pirates somehow, and the others go to rescue her. Alm makes it to Rudolph, slaying the king's forces. He even eventually kills Rudolph himself. But it's a bittersweet victory. Turns out that Rudolph is Alm's father, and not the true bad guy after all. Duma, a dragon, was
How
going mad,
generic.
as they do. It was foretold that Alm and Celica,
How
who
can I
wore
not
special
see
marks on
that?
their hands, would be the ones to end Duma's madness and unify all of Valentia. Rudolph had planned for this unification from the very beginning. Meanwhile, Celica makes it to the temple and finds that Milla is gone and is actually at Duma Tower. Milla is already dead, though, slain by Falchion. Oh yeah, by the way, there's actually two Falchions. This one is in Valentia. In this tower, Jeddah, a priest of Duma and a man as ugly and evil as Garneth, threatens the lives of Celica's friends. He forces her to go with him and traps her in a prison under Duma Tower. Alm eventually finds Celica, but her mind is corrupted. Milla, who is probably more of a ghost than a dragon at this point, compels Alm to take Falchion out of the dragon's corpse and kill Celica. Milla's last remaining power is used to bring Celica back to life and free her of the mind control. Their last task is to kill Duma and end this madness once and for all. And hey, our heroes succeed and we get another happy ending. Alm and Celica marry and unify the country, fulfilling Rudolph's wishes and establishing long-lasting peace. 607. New mystery.
All right.
Emblem. We turn our eyes back to Marth.
So, dragon, war, romance. Dragon, war, romance. Fucking child, country leading, peace, broke again by more dragon, that leftover dragon, and then war, romance, fucking child, next generation, the same shit. Jesus Christ. The only difference is like how things gonna go down. Oh boy. But you know what? Kinda accurate. It's not really difference after all. All kingdom do be like that. Oh boy. Minus the dragon though. But yeah. There was no plot. Alright, it's repeatable in a way.
2 years after his victory over Medius. Marth's old ally, Hardin, is the king of Arcanea and decides to spoil all their good relations. He orders Marth to invade Grust, but Marth is like, no way, man. And so Hardin labels Marth a traitor, just like what happened to our old friend Sigurd hundreds of years ago. As it turns out, Garnef, who should have stayed dead, is back. He corrupted Hardin and made him all, angry and evil. Medius? Yeah, he's back too, revived by Garnef. So,
More dragon.
we've got another big war on our hands. Once again, it's up to Marth and his new friend Chris to fight and save the world. Who's Chris? Well, that's up to you, the player. Chris is your own avatar. Think of them kind of like the player character from Fire Emblem Awakening. With the help of old allies like Tiki and the White Wings, Marth kills all 3 of our bad dudes. Marth and Sheeta marry, and he goes down in history as the Hero King. This time, he rules over Arcanea, while Hardin sits 6 feet under. 2609, Awakening. 2,000 years later, and not much has changed technologically. Like, seriously, it's been 2 millennia and people are still clinking and clanking swords together. You'd think with all the wars, somebody would have figured out how to make gunpowder.
Yeah, that's, I don't know, maybe magic shit and sword is way more. Nah. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes war do tend to follow like a tradition and shit. So it being perceived as holy, but the way the story goes with this one is just like there's no tradition or anything like that being portrayed. It's just like war, kingdom, yada yada yada. So yeah, why there's no gun? There's not really anything that not let them to progress in that section of weaponry, Why there's no like a range weapon or some shit like that? I'm gonna be honest, those plot are only background to characters development. The main thing is like liking characters who you choose from your team and being super salty and angry and sad when they died in battle because you are made from
At least the
Oh,
political
boy.
climate is different. Arcanea is now called Elise, and one of its countries is called Elise too, kind of like an, Australia situation. Elise is ruled by Marth's descendants, Exalt Emerin, Crom, and Lissa. Across the sea is Valentia, renamed Valm after Alm from Shadows of Valentia. Alm and Celica's descendant, Walhart, runs things over there. The game starts with Crom leading the Shepherds, a group of soldiers who protect Elise. One day, they find a mysterious person named Robin.
Crom.
This is the player's character. Robin has no memory, but quickly becomes a valuable asset to the group as a tactician. Around this time, some spooky zombie guys called the Risen start attacking Elise. They're part of the army of the Grimleal,
Snoop
another
Dogg.
nefarious cult that worships another evil dragon, Grima. At one
Oh,
point,
boy.
a mysterious masked person named Marth appears to fight against the Risen with the Shepherds. The neighboring kingdom of Plagia starts a war with Elise in order to gain the Fire Emblem, which has remained in the possession of Marth's descendants since he saved the day way back when. The Fire Emblem's power would be a threat to Grima. Of course, things don't go as planned, and the king of Plagia is killed, but not before kidnapping and causing the death of Exalt Emerin. Still, the war is far from over. About 2 years later, Walhart starts a campaign to conquer the continent of Elise. Now they need to fight the descendants of Alm? Great. So the shepherds succeed and kill Walhart with the help of neighboring kingdom Regna Ferox and masked Marth. The team learns that Marth is actually Crom's daughter, Lucina. She was born about a year prior, but she's traveled back from the future to stop what happened in her timeline. The death of pretty much everyone at the hands of Grima and the Grimleal.
Now they put fucking time travel and shit.
What happened in her timeline. The death of pretty much everyone at the hands of Grima and the Grimleal. The only survivors were the children of Crom's army, and she wants to prevent this future. She's basically the Trunks of Fire Emblem, sword and all. At some point on their journey, they meet Tiki. She's still kicking, but she looks like she's only about 20 years old, and not 2,000. Wouldn't it be nice to be a dragon? She says the only way to stop the Grimleal is to remake the Fire Emblem with 5 spheres. There are 2 choices for the player to end the game with, but I like to think that the real one is where Robin sacrifices themselves to actually kill Grima. In the other ending, Crom seals Grima away, but the seal only lasts for 1,000 years. Kinda, feels like you're just sweeping the problem under the rug. Robin even comes back after sacrificing themselves, so it's all good. And if Grima comes back in 3 houses, then hey, we'll know which ending is canon. 3 houses might just be on a whole different timeline altogether. That would take the count up to 4 different timelines in the Fire Emblem series. And let me know if you want me to cover any of the other ones.
Jesus
I know the lore
Christ.
can be really tough to pin down, but I love Fire Emblem all the same. It's just a game, but it's got some of the heaviest lore out there. And from indie to AAA, we love the games you play. I've been your host, Marcus, and if you want to boost your affinity with us, subscribe to the leaderboard. That way, we'll both be stronger.
Okay. Jesus fuck, alright.